As far as electric cars, I think that they are not a solution in any way, shape, or form. They're a continuation of car culture, which in itself is one of the worst things that's ever happened to this planet. And what I mean by that is that when you continue to manufacture cars, you invest in cars as an idea, as a system. And that includes roads, highways, parking lots, transportation networks to get the cars where they need to go, factories to build the cars, dealerships to sell the cars, banks to give loans for people who can't afford the cars. And this system is destroying the planet. It doesn't matter whether it's powered by fossil fuels or electricity from so-called renewable energy. It's still destroying the planet. And, it's kind of silly because, for example, here in the Northwest where I live, most of our power comes from hydro, from dams. And people say, and the utility companies like to boast that this is green power. And of course, that power is what's destroyed the salmon runs. It's what's decimated the oilfish, candlefish runs, and the sturgeon, and the steelhead, and the rivers themselves. All the life that depends on those rivers has been absolutely devastated by these dams. And of course, most people don't realize that dams too also emit huge amounts of carbon dioxide, both from their construction in terms of the amount of concrete and steel required. Concrete, of course, is one of the most polluting industries out there. And then after they're built, dams continue to release huge amounts of greenhouse gas emissions in the form of methane, mostly from organic matter decomposing in the reservoir behind the dam. So dams are certainly not green. And so when people up here get an electric car and plug it into the wall and try and feel good about it, that's not a solution. And a lot of people who are doing this are trying to do the right thing. They're trying to feel good about themselves. But our salvation does not come in the form of consumer choices and buying the right thing. And that's because this system is really smart at taking those impulses and twisting them around and making them support the system that people think they're somehow fighting against. So when you buy a brand new electric car from Tesla or General Motors or Ford or any of these companies, what you're doing is you're supporting global capitalism, you're supporting multi-billion-dollar businesses, you're supporting global shipping that's completely dependent on fossil fuels, you're supporting the production of more and more factories around the world, you're supporting car culture, and there's a lot of money going into this. And of course, because the green technology industry has been able to co-opt the environmental movement, now you have public subsidies going towards these industries as green and sustainable. So the federal tax credit that you get for buying an electric car is thousands of dollars. And that's our tax money that's going directly to these corporations in order to support them building cars. That's what we're talking about here. And even if the adoption of electric cars was able to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which it could, but I'm relatively doubtful that it will, because once again, it supports the entire global economy. It's wrapped up in the global economy that is so dependent on fossil fuels. Even if it could do that, it would still be a disaster for the planet. It would still be an absolute disaster. And that's because we can't look at climate change in isolation. We can't just say greenhouse gas emissions are a problem, the planet getting warmer is a problem, and not think about anything else. Because global warming is a symptom. It's a symptom of the culture that we live in, destroying the forests, plowing the prairies and the grasslands, destroying the oceans, burning fossil fuels, destroying the land in so many countless ways, dispossessing indigenous cultures. The warming is a symptom. It's a fever. And so if we only focus on the greenhouse gas emissions and say, okay, let's continue with industrialism, let's continue with colonialism, let's continue with resource extraction on a huge scale, but let's scale it back a little bit and not do as much greenhouse gas emissions. That is a program that's destined for failure. It's it doesn't have any basis in reality, in what's actually happening on the planet, and it doesn't address the fundamental issues. So if you were able to reduce this culture's greenhouse gas emissions to the point where global warming wasn't a problem, but otherwise continue, the planet would still be on a path towards total destruction, and rapidly. So I think we need to look at these green technologies for what they are, and that's false solutions.